In this video, we are going to cover the strange disappearance of Nora Quoirin. Nora was a special needs young 15-year-old who had a disorder, that is, an abnormality of brain development that makes the brain not properly divide into the right and left hemispheres. Her mental state was to be of a 6-year-old. Nora had limited verbal communication skills and could only write a few words. She was very dependent on her Irish mother, Maeve. Her family was quoted, "She never goes anywhere by herself." Nora would not know how to get help and would never leave her family voluntarily. This is very odd, as she would have seemed to have left through a window or had been helped and or goaded out maybe. The Quoirin family decided to go on a Malaysian trip to an exclusive dusun eco-resort in southern Nigeria, not far from the Malaysian capital. The resort was composed of 7 self-contained houses. The family checked in at around 7 a.m. after an overnight flight from London. That evening, Nora was put to sleep by her parents wearing just her underwear. Over the night, something would happen that we may never know the answer to, but by morning, she was missing. Her father, Sebastian, on August 4th, found she was missing from the house at 8:30 a.m. and quickly notified the authorities. The police suspected Nora had opened a downstairs window and walked into the jungle. There was a window found open, and it did not look like it had been forced open. The family, on the other hand, thought she was abducted by a person or persons. Unfortunately, there were no CCTV cameras at the resort apart from the reception area and the security barriers at the entrance to the resort. Now, this is very odd that she would just leave her bed and go to a window, open it, and climb out. As I said earlier, she had mental conditions and was very dependent on her mother. It was not likely to leave her family without being forced. And she was in a house that had her parents, sisters, and brother, but none of them heard her get up and leave. Like many of these other cases, a large search team was gathered. The search and rescue operations team consisted of personnel from various agencies, including the police, canine tracker dogs, fire and rescue, civil defense force, and People's Volunteer Corps and civilians. Drones and helicopters with heat-sinking cameras were also used in the search. On the first day of the search, canine handler Sergeant S. Simon and his German Shepherd failed to pick up a scent where she was believed to have left out the window. He didn't know where to start, so he asked the family if he could have something for the dog to smell that Nora would have worn before, and he was provided with a white attire. The search after this lasted about 2 hours, and there was no positive indication of a scent when brought to the window that Nora was said to have left the house at. The search lasted 10 days, and Nora's unclothed body was found in a small stream in a ravine by volunteers, 1.6 miles from the resort. Sean Yeep, a hiker who was part of the search team which found her remains, said her body had not been covered in any foliage or hidden and was lying with her head on her hands. He was quoted, "It looked like she was sleeping, her head resting on her hands, but we all knew she was dead. I could see the body. She was lying with her hands behind her head like you do when you go to sleep. There were some scratches on her arm and some bruises. But otherwise, there were no injuries. I am not sure, but I think she could have been dead for a few days. I think maybe she was elsewhere and walked to the stream, perhaps to drink some water. The place where she was found is not easy to find. I wonder if she had been following the stream, as there were no footprints, which means she could have been walking in the water, as it is not very deep." There were scratches and light wounds found on Nora's legs, and one article claims she had no cuts on her feet. This is also very odd, seeing that she would have been walking through a jungle, 1.5 miles or more, for days and at night with low visibility, naked or just in underwear, barefoot, over rocks, but had nothing to show for it on her feet, and had minor wounds. Also, the area where she was found was searched 3 or more times before she was located, leaving many to speculate she was put there to get rid of her. This seems very unlikely for a few reasons, like she was not one to leave her family voluntarily, and had someone come in through that window, they probably would have woken up one of the other family members who weren't far away. The police also didn't find any footprints inside the villa or forensic evidence to suggest an unknown person was inside. The area of the villa where the family was staying is covered with wet vegetation, and the single-track road leading to the resort is covered in mud. Had someone entered that window and climbed a flight of stairs to a bedroom, it is assumed there would be traces of mud or something. There was no ransom note eliminating a kidnapper, and the DNA plus physical evidence showed Nora was not raped or sexually molested, so a sexual predator seems unlikely. The authorities continued a search after finding her body to try and locate her underwear at 8:30 a.m. on August 14th, with the help of 361 people. They were in a straight line sweeping pattern, which started from the dusun retreat where Nora vanished and to the point where her body was found. Despite this effort, they failed to find her underwear and the operation was called off. The autopsy ruled the official death was of stress and internal bleeding in the intestines due to an ulcer, which was brought on by starvation. It is also confirmed she had been dead around 4 days before the discovery of her body. Nora's family went on to sue the resort owner for alleged negligence and claimed in their lawsuit that there was no security at the resort and that the cottage window was found ajar with a broken latch the morning Nora went missing. The parents had rejected police theories that her death was just an accident, knowing who she was and that she wouldn't just have wandered off into the night. A shaman, Khalid Muhammad, was part of the search party. He was believed to be able to summon spirits. He entered a trance-like state to perform a ritual incantation in a bid to find Nora during the search. He said he believed the girl was lured by a genie. A genie, for those who don't know, is said to be an invisible spirit believed by Muslims to inhabit the earth and influence mankind by appearing in the form of humans or animals. Khalid said the genie was attracted to the girl because she had special needs and had chosen her to be its stepchild. Some of the headlines in the Malaysian newspapers had said she was lured out by a genie. This is a very strange death for many reasons. If you've known of other odd cases like this, you know how it has a lot of similarities tying to those. She was found in water, barefoot, and by big granite boulders, which seems to happen a lot in cases like these. There's been speculation that her parents might have had something to do with her death, but I just don't know about that, because there were no marks like she was killed, and she died of natural causes. If they had just put her out in the jungle that night, knowing she probably wouldn't be able to find her way out, and that would be foolish of her father to immediately notify the authorities the next day in the morning. There are some theories I can think of, like maybe she was kidnapped and taken out that window, but they were in a house all together and it seems like at least one person would have heard something. Also, there would probably be footprints or mud or something in the house, and footprints outside of someone unknown. She wasn't raped or beaten, and there was little or nothing to show on her feet of her being out in the jungle for 6 days. This is just a very odd case to me, especially that she was lying in water with her head in her hands like someone had put her there, but had no marks or physical injuries like she was killed and then put like that. The case is still fairly new, and more about this case is probably going to keep coming out, so hopefully we can get a better conclusion to this death. I send out prayers to her family and hope they find closure one day, since I don't think they're going to accept the fact that their daughter with special needs just climbed out a window in the night to the jungle.